I will admit this is not something that I had on my 2023 bingo card. The Canadian Parliament now honoring someone from the Waffen SS being the combat division of the National Socialist Party who was led by Adolf Hitler. Isn't that just genuinely unbelievable? Not once, but twice receiving standing ovations. Let's go ahead and jump into this. I cannot believe this is happening. Starting off with Michael Knowles was not my intended plan, but it really highlights the absurdity and the hilarity of how ridiculous this all is. He says, I'm still laughing over the entirety of the Canadian Parliament's giving a standing ovation to a Nazi from the Waffen SS because they thought it would help Ukraine or something. And that is the logic. As stupid as it sounds, that is the thought process. Here we see Viva Frei says, here is a moment that the Canadian Parliament gave not one but two standing ovations to a Nazi soldier. Never forget. And I guarantee you the internet never will. Just like they'll never forget how Justin Trudeau handled crushing the trucker protest and calling those people Nazis. Let's go ahead and get into this footage of the Canadian Parliament.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98. His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
I have a serious question for the fundamentally unserious people of Canada. Are you okay with this? No, of course not. But that doesn't really matter because I would argue Canadians don't really have a revolutionary spirit, and if they do, they have almost no capacity to tap into it because they've been pacified for so long. We saw a small bout of the revolutionary spirit be activated within the Canadian truckers during the Canadian trucker protest in Ottawa, and what did we see? We saw people like Justin Trudeau come out and make them with references akin to that of being nothing more than, wait for it, Nazis. Fucking despicable. Let's go ahead and see what Rebel News has to say, as they say liberals tried to wipe Parliament honoring a Nazi from the official House records. So they did something bad, and they'd rather completely remove it from the context of history so they can always play the benefactor of being the good guy no matter what. Conservatives opposed this motion, saying those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it, and that's absolutely spot on. Couldn't have said it better myself. Every single time I see that quote, I think of the Mark Twain quote, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes, and what we have once more is a superstructure in an attempt to cover its own crimes by valorizing someone who had committed heinous actions. Let's go ahead and jump into this clip.
I would like to ask for unanimous consent to adopt the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, the recognition made by the Speaker of the House of an individual present in the galleries during the joint address to Parliament by His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky be struck from the appendix of the House of Commons debates of Thursday, September 21st, 2023, and from any House multimedia recording. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, yes, the Honourable. I guess we have to go to the, we'll ask about unanimous consent, then go to it. All those opposed to the Honourable Ministers moving the motion will please say nay. We don't have unanimous consent. We have another order.
It goes without saying that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. What happened on Friday was shameful and brought embarrassment to this chamber. It was an ugly reminder of what survivors of the Holocaust know too well, that we must never forget. Deleting the text of the Speaker's words from Hansard's would have...
I'm going to have to interrupt. I see this. I'm afraid it's getting into debate more than anything else.
Once again, much like we've seen many a times in history, government apparatchiks are trying to scratch the record clean so they can play both sides and always come out on top. The Canadian Parliament trying to remove the context that they valorized a former Nazi and member of the Waffen SS. Is this not genuinely unbelievable, but nothing more than a perfect example of how history doesn't repeat, it rhymes? And here we see Stalin in one picture, he has his compatriot with him, and the next, his compatriot has been completely removed from the photo. And this is what happened numerous times throughout history with many of Stalin's advisors. He had them killed, and with that, he wanted his greatness and glory to be known throughout history, but thankfully, with the proliferation of the internet and mass information distribution across the planet and many historical scholars diving into the history of the Soviet Union, we now know that this is nothing more than felonious lies. Okay. And what do we see? Hopefully in the future, when people see in the history books of what happened with the Canadian government, they will understand of what they tried to pull here was going to be nothing more than a felonious lie that they were trying to establish to restructure history. On to Kanoka the Great, we see new Justin Trudeau blames Russian propaganda for Canadian Parliament honoring a Nazi. When I saw this clip, I facepalmed so hard that I damn near sent my forehead into the back of my scalp. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Let's go.
Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine, as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
The fact that they're pulling in the Hillary Clinton playbook to handle Donald Trump is that it's all Russia. It's Russia's fault. Well, it couldn't be the fact of our misgivings and that we messed up. No. It must be Russian propaganda. Unbelievable. Let's go ahead and move on. We see Glenn Greenwald. How, after a lifetime of appearing in blackface, does Justin Trudeau get caught applauding an SS soldier who fought with the Nazis and then instantly starts babbling about Russian disinformation? Do you see how Western elites use Russia to blame for all of their failings? Absolutely true. Oh, what's that? This populist candidate that wasn't a politician that claimed he was going to make everyone win because everyone's been consistently losing from the political elites completely destroying America throughout the entirety of the 21st century with all of the economic mishandlings to the wars that we've been spending to completely blow out the empire and destroy us at home while expanding us abroad. Oh, no. Don't worry. It must be the fault of Russia. Russia is the reason why Donald Trump got elected, not the fact that we sent tens of thousands of our bravest young men and women to go die in mass and go commit suicide when they finally came home from the atrocities they had committed. No, it couldn't be the fact that we destroyed the currency by printing money in mass, blowing out the debt ceiling and skyrocketing us to $33 trillion in debt. It couldn't be that. It couldn't be that we ruined the middle class and the American capacity to move upwards through the economic ladder by strip mining 30 to 40% of the value from the American people with the boom bust economic cycle that we completely decimated the lower and middle class with during 2008 and 2009. No, it couldn't be that. It must be fucking Russia. Let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to go into an article from the Post-Millennial. Breaking from the Post-Millennial, we have House of Commons Speaker apologizes for honoring 98-year-old Ukrainian Nazi, claims idea was entirely his. Not so sure I buy that. I particularly want to extend my deepest apologies to the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, he states. On Sunday, the Speaker of the House of Commons, Anthony Rota, apologized for his decision to honor the 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka in front of the Canadian Parliament after it was revealed that the Ukrainian fought with the Nazi Waffen SS during the Second World War. Isn't that interesting? In a post on X, Rhoda said, on September 22nd in the House of Commons, I recognized an individual in the gallery. I have subsequently become aware of more information which causes me to regret my decision to do so. And how were you not aware of this information prior? How had you not done any cursory information exploration to find anything about this person? Zero research. You didn't have any of your aides do it. Let's say one of his aides brought this to his attention and he wasn't the only person that knew about it, or many of the people throughout the liberal establishment within Canada knew about this that were in Parliament. Well, how is it that none of you had any information about this and you just ran with it? And if that's actually the case, I would argue it shows even more so how the fact of the people that are running the governments of the world are nothing more than artificial elites, completely detached from the minutiae of the things that they should most certainly be involved in. I wish to make clear that no one, including my fellow parliamentarians and the Ukrainian delegation, was aware of my intention or my remarks before I delivered them, he said. I would agree, and also I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Ukrainian delegation wasn't aware of this. It would be a nice surprise if you were to say, look at this, we have this World War II veteran from Ukraine, look at how noble we are to bolster this while you're here. He says, the initiative was entirely my own, the individual in question being from my writing and having been brought to my attention. I particularly want to extend my deepest apologies to the Jewish community, as he said. I fully accept the responsibility for my actions. Well, here's the deal. You didn't have any option but to accept the responsibility for your actions, because if you didn't step down and resign, you were going to be tarred, feathered, and fired. There is no out for this. There was no escaping it. Some have questioned whether Rhoda was truly the only person behind the matter. The Conservative Party leader laid blame on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and I would actually have to agree on that. I do not believe this was a one-man job. What we see is it has come out today that Justin Trudeau personally met with the honored veteran 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS, a Nazi. Liberals then arranged this Nazi veteran to be recognized on the floor of the House of Commons during the visit. Well, here's the deal. As we know, this is something that is blown up in the face of the Canadian government. Justin Trudeau now blaming this on Russian propaganda rather than just admitting the fact that you made a mistake, which is another perfect example of how far removed these people are from anywhere being near to the average person. They can't even admit they made a mistake. On Friday, the Canadian Parliament, along with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, gave Hunka a standing ovation during the joint session in the Parliament in Ottawa. Hunka was a great guest of Zelensky, who was lobbying the Canadian government for more military aid to assist in their war against Russia. It was revealed that Hunka was a soldier with the 14th Galicia Division of the Waffen SS, the military section of the Nazis. The group was responsible for elements of terror from massive extermination camps to daily torture and repression of citizens within the occupied Europe, and was later declared a criminal organization during the Nuremberg trials. Hunka immigrated to Canada after World War II, where he fought with the 1st Ukrainian divisions. The Galicia Division was later named in 1945 to Ukrainian name to avoid connecting it to the Waffen SS. Isn't that interesting? We just talked about the fact of restructuring history to suit your own ends. Turns out we already have it happening here. In his speech on Friday, Speaker Rhoda proudly proclaimed that Hunka was a veteran from the Second World War who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today at his ripe age of 98. However, during the Second World War, Canada was allies with Russia, and it would have been considered an enemy of Hunka. The Canadian government committed to spending $650 million in a multi-year commitment that provides predictable, steady support for Ukraine for their war effort. The United States just said that we have an extra $6 billion we can go ahead and go send to Ukraine, and Canada saying, well, don't worry, we have this measly $650 million, and I'd argue we shouldn't be funding the war in Ukraine anyways, because all we're doing is propagating a proxy war on Russia's border to bolster NATO's claims to push further that of the world empire. But that's a video for a different day. Let's go ahead and jump in, and we see Kremlin says Canadian recognition of veteran from Nazi unit is outrageous. And yes, absolutely it is. Could you be anywhere near surprised about any of this whatsoever, that the Russians are like, wow, you're valorizing a Nazi? How dare you? It's like, of course, even though that what the actions are being taken by the Russian government with the killing of Ukrainian civilians is absolutely heinous and it's wrong, and the people who run the Russian government are nothing more than gangsters like the people that run our own. Well, here's the deal. It's a surprise to basically everyone when anyone sees a Nazi being supported. They're like, whoa, holy shit, what the fuck? What's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. Let's go ahead and jump in. We have from Public, the malignant narcissism of Justin Trudeau. This is going to be an absolute banger. It says, on the psychopathology of a man who spreads disinformation while demanding censorship, freezes the bank accounts of people who criticize him, and smears ordinary Canadians as Nazis. This is going to be an absolute banger. Let's go ahead and jump in. Last week, Canadian House of Commons Speaker Anthony Rota invited 98-year-old man Yaroslav Hunka to attend a speech by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Rota called Hunka a Canadian hero, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau cheered for Hunka alongside lawmakers. But Hunka, it turned out, had served in a Nazi unit during World War II, sparking outrage. In response, Rota took full responsibility for the incident, and Trudeau called it deeply embarrassing. Trudeau then warned against Russian propaganda and Russian disinformation. Unbelievable. Trudeau's non-apology and dismissal of criticisms as Russian disinformation is especially hypocritical given his repeated denunciation of the Canadian Freedom Convoy as a Nazi-linked movement. About the truckers, Trudeau said, "We are seeing activity that is a threat to our democracy and that is undermining the public's trust in institutions. People don't trust the institutions because they know they're filled with lying hacks like Justin Trudeau, and the fact that they would say, well, this is a threat to our democracy, never forget that when they say that, they just mean that it is a threat to their hegemony and their control over the subsystems that orchestrate society." One day later, Justin Trudeau compared the truckers to Nazis and American racial segregationists. Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastikas, he said. They can stand with people who wave the Confederate flag. It should not have to be said, but it does. Trudeau had zero evidence then and none today, but the truckers were racist Nazis, had zero grounding. The swastikas printed on flags at the convoy were not hate symbols. They were intended as criticism of the government overreach through a comparison to Nazi Germany. Yet Trudeau condemned a Jewish member of parliament for being sympathetic to the convoy for supporting people who wave swastikas. And that is the degree that these people will stoop to. They do not care if you yourself are a Jewish person who has a family that survived the Holocaust, and that is the only reason you are here. They will say that you are a Nazi sympathizer. This is a perfect example of why the corporate press, the journalist class, and the people in power when it comes to the political elite should be treated as nothing more than scum on the bottom of your shoe, like they are tobacco executives that want to sell you poison. Trudeau's colleagues participated in his conspiracy theory. One Liberal MP said that the truckers' honk honk slogan was a coded message for Heil Hitler. There was never any evidence for any of this then or now. I remember when this happened, I thought it was like a joke being pushed by 4chan because it was so stupid. But it turned out to be true, because only something that stupid could be said by someone that went through academia and now works in government. My God. As such, Trudeau is spreading disinformation. Naturally, Trudeau has for the last 3 years been accused of spreading more disinformation and demanding that social media companies like Facebook and Twitter censor people he disagrees with. Canada's political troubles may seem trivial and unimportant. The country is not a significant military power. It has fewer people than California. Its economy is 9th in the world. California's is the 4th. Trudeau has been engaging in the usual progressive rhetoric of accusing his opponents of being Nazis, somehow with something both sides tend to do, as the controversy over last Friday's appalling show. What we see is many people outside of Canada may understandably conclude that the general awfulness of Justin Trudeau just isn't very important. And here's the deal. If the general awfulness of the leader that runs your country isn't a big deal, at what point, like I said, should you be treated as a serious people? There's a strong argument to make that the United States shouldn't be treated as a serious people when it comes to the nature of who our leaders have been and how much of a joke they appear to have come off as in the past 10 years. But here's the deal. The United States is the world empire and the people who herald the strongest military in the entire planet. And for that reason, people have to take them seriously, despite how much of a joke our leaders may be. But Trudeau is important, he says. What he's doing in Canada should terrify everyone in the Western world who cares about being free from government tyranny, censorship, and disinformation. That's because Trudeau is pioneering a new way of governments to take control over the information environment, spreading disinformation and demanding censorship. This is similar but different to the efforts we are seeing in places like California, Australia, and New Zealand. Go ahead, give this guy a follow on Substack. Everything will be linked in the description down below as per usual for every single thing that I use for every video that I make. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Do not fall for the tyranny nor the lies of the corporate press. I'm going to leave it there. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely. Stay great. Peace out.